Good evening, this is Kavi Priya, Assistant Professor, EC Department, SNS College of Technology. I am going to deliver a topic, line codes and its property. So what is a line code? So line code is a code used for transmission of a digital signal over a transmission line. This process of coding is chosen so as to avoid overlapping and distortion of a signal such as inter-symbol interference. Line codes are common in computer communication networks over a short distance. Line coding is a process of converting a digital data to digital signal. By this technique, we can convert a sequence of bits to the digital signal. At the sender side, digital data are encoded into digital signal, and at the receiver side, digital data are recreated by decoding the digital signal. And these are all the types of line codes. They are unipolar, polar, bipolar, multi-level and multi-transition. Unipolar, we have non-return to 0. Polar will be having a non-return to 0, return to 0, and biphase. Biphase is of Manchester and differential Manchester. Bipolar, AMI and pseudotromy. And multi-level is 2B, 1Q, 8B, 60, 4D PAMS, and multi-transition is MLT3. So unipolar, first we can see what is this unipolar signal. So in this, a signal is represented, symbol 1 is represented by transmitting a pulse of amplitude A for a duration of a symbol, and symbol 0 is represented by switching of the pulse. So unipolar non-return to 0 line is also referred as on-off signaling. Drawback is that waste of power due to transmitted DC level and the fact that the power spectrum of transmitter signal does not approach 0 at 0 frequency. So 0 will be represented as off and 1 will be represented as on. And unipolar return to 0, here 1 is represented by a rectangular pulse of amplitude A and half symbol width, and 0 is represented by transmitting no pulse. So the 1 will be represented as an amplitude A for half width duration, and after that half width duration, again will be reaching the 0 axis, and the 0 level symbol is represented as transmitting the no pulses. Polar, here the symbol 1 and 0 are represented by transmitting a pulses of amplitude plus A and minus A. Plus A is for 1 and minus A is for 0. Polar return to 0, in case of polar signaling, high in data though represented by mark pulse, its duration is T0 is lesser than the symbol duration. Half of the bit duration remains I, but it is immediately returned to 0 and shows the absence of pulse during the remaining half of the bit duration. For low input, a negative pulse represents a data and 0 level remains same for other half of the bit duration. Bipolar signaling. This is an encoding technique which has 3 levels, plus, minus and 0. An example of this is an alternate mark inversion. For 1, the voltage level gets a transition from positive to negative, and from negative to positive. Alternate ones will be there. And for 0, it is a 0 voltage level. Even in this method, we have two types, bipolar non-return to 0 and polar return to 0. Bipolar, there are 3 voltage levels, positive, negative and 0. The voltage level for one data element is at 0, while the voltage level for other data element alternates between a positive and negative. And next is the properties of line code. As a coding is done to make more bits transmit on a single signal channel, the bandwidth used is much reduced. For a given bandwidth, the power is efficiently used. The probability of error is much reduced. And error detection is done, and bipolar 2 has a correction capability. Power density is much favorable. Timing content is adequate. Long strings of 1s and 0s is avoided to maintain the transparency. Self-synchronization, both and the receiver and center and the transmitter clock. Sender and the receiver clock should be synchronized. Immunity to noise and interferences. It has a less complexity. No low frequency component as long as a distance transfer is not feasible for low frequency component signals. So that's all about the line codes. So under line codes, we have seen the different types of line codes. They are bipolar, polar and unipolar. Under each category we have seen two types, non-return to 0 and returns to 0. And also we have seen the signal representation for each and every line codes. And also we have seen what are all the properties of the line codes. Thank you.